So I want to give you a little history here. I'm married to a combat veteran who suffers from PTSD. And let's just say our relationship has been rocky at times, but we have learned to grow a healthy, happy, loving relationship. And that is obviously our goal for you as well. I know that when I first got started in this journey, it was tough and it was hard because there is no handbook for us. There is no little book that says, hey, do this and do that, and nobody prepares you for what's going to happen. So we wanted to kind of just give you a brief insight as to, hey, what do I do when I first get started here? I found this, I want help, I want our relationship to improve, and where do I start? First thing you have to do is stop the drowning, because we feel like we are drowning in PTSD. It happens, it's just one of those things. We walk on eggshells, we don't want the explosions, we don't want the shutting down, we don't know why we're married to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, what happened to the loving person I was married to, how did all of a sudden they flip their switch. It just becomes overwhelming. We feel like we can't communicate, we speak different languages. The truth is we kind of do. So there's all of these things that we take on that we have no idea how to fix. I'm going to give you your first and most important thing that you're going to learn through the whole process is you cannot fix your veteran. You cannot fix your veteran. You can love them, support them, guide them, encourage them, be with them, but you cannot fix them. It is not possible. It is something that they have to work through. However, with that said, there are a lot of things that we do wrong without knowing any differently. Because again, nobody gave us that book, right? There was no book that was given to us that said, if you want things to improve here, do this, 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 and this. Nobody said that to us. So we didn't have that book. And I'm going to kind of give you the preamble of the book. That's where we're going to kind of start today, is this preamble of the book. Living with a Combat Veteran 101, I guess. So what happens is this. There are a few things you absolutely need to understand. One, you need to understand that warfighter mindset. Veterans typically join the military between the ages of 18 and 20. Everything they are learned is a better word, taught, do, believe, act, and feel gets programmed in somewhere between the ages of 18 and 20. And the human brain does not fully form around emotion and rationalization till you're 25. So if you are learning all this stuff prior to 25, it is something that's going to be pretty ingrained into your way of thinking, into your way of processing. You need to know that as you're going forward. In the warfighter mindset, there's a few simple things you need to understand. One, they are very, very, very mission driven. Veterans are mission driven. So when you ask them to do something, they need to do things that are mission driven. You can't give this long, complex list, because when you are mission driven, you have an objective, and you usually can carry it out in 2, no more than 3 steps, and you're given the opportunity to process it and look for everything that can potentially go wrong. So you need to understand that our veterans are very mission driven. They want to succeed, but when they become overwhelmed, it's almost impossible. That's number one. Number two, there is not a lot of empathy when it comes to a veteran. Doesn't mean they don't love, doesn't mean they don't care, doesn't mean they don't have those moments, but empathy is hard to find. Why? How empathetic are you supposed to be on a battlefield when your life is in danger, or your buddy's life is in danger, or your squadron's life is in danger, or your company's life is in danger? How empathetic are you really going to be? You have to be able to act without emotion. They need to be able to act without emotion. So again, this is processed, ingrained, programmed, whatever word you want to use. This is put into their brain before they're 25, and it carries with them throughout their military service. So whether they were in 2 years, 4 years, doesn't matter, 20 years, this is the way of life that they lived. So when they get out, to expect them to be able to feel normal, as we call them, feelings, well, how come when I'm crying they don't see it? How come when I'm having a bad day they don't know I just need to be loved? How come they don't say they love me? How come they don't show those emotions? How come they can be cold? Because empathy is not something they're strong at. Empathy is not something they're strong at. You can't sit here and be able to, if you had to, take a human life and think about all of the things that go with it. Well, is it going to be somebody's child? Is it going to be somebody? You can't. You have to be able to act, and you have to be able to do it without the emotion. So that is another concept in the warfighter mindset. Failure is not an option. Another huge thing. You will hear your veterans say that a lot. Failure is not an option. So when they think they're failing at a relationship, or they think that they're failing you, a lot of times they push you away. Why? Because failure is not an option. And when something is failing, you eliminate the problem. When something is failing and there's a problem, you eliminate the problem. So a lot of times you'll find that your veteran disassociates, maybe moves out, maybe wants to say, I want a divorce, maybe wants to say it's done, maybe wants to shut down, because they see themselves as the problem sometimes, and they want to eliminate that problem. Next thing you need to understand is you will never, ever, 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 ever have a relationship with your veteran like they had with their battle buddy. You will have a different relationship, but you will never, ever, 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 ever have the relationship with your veteran like they had with their battle buddy. 24/7, in combat, in theater, wherever they were, their life depended upon somebody else, not just themselves, with the person or persons that they served with, because somebody had to sleep at some point in time. And they had to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that that person could have their back. Trust is everything to a veteran. I have interviewed hundreds of veterans, and they have all said, 95% have said, the number one thing in a relationship over love is trust. Trust. You're like, well, I don't lie to them. If you're walking on eggshells, you're lying. Trust, number one thing. So we have to know that going forward. There's just things that you need to know that are going to help your journey along the way. Another huge thing you need to learn is this is a journey. It is a lot of baby steps. It is a marathon, not a sprint. There is no magical overnight cure. There is no magical pill. There is no nothing that is going to fix it overnight. It is a lot of work. And you can see the mountain at the top where you want to be. But you remember that going to the top of the mountain is not always a straight climb. You go up the mountain, you go down the valley. You go up the next part, you go down in a valley. You go up the next part, you go down in a valley, till you finally reach the summit. So there are a lot of valleys, a lot of pitfalls, a lot of backsliding. But as long as you keep your focus on where you're going, it is doable. It is doable. So remember, it is a lot of baby steps. It's just something we need to learn and we need to face and we have to understand, because nobody tells us that either. Next thing, PTSD is not the third person who lives in your marriage or your relationship. PTSD becomes the scapegoat. Well, we're doing things that are just kind of off. We're talking really crappy to each other. We may be mad and we're exploding, and we say, that's PTSD. It's not always PTSD. Sometimes it's bad communication. Sometimes it is PTSD. But what happens is we blame it on PTSD, so we enable the PTSD or the TBI to become the third person in our relationship. They're not. They're not. We need to understand PTSD, what it is, how it works, and how it affects your relationship. PTSD is basically an overactive amygdala. It creates a fight or flight situation. And the veteran doesn't necessarily see that because they're so used to their amygdala being overstimulated from just basic training and from possibly the event, that it keeps them trapped there. And so they may say something ugly to us because something came up and they now feel threatened. Then we say something ugly back. Then they say something ugly back because they feel like they've been pushed against a wall. Then we feel like we've been pushed against a wall. So we now say something ugly back. And I call it triggers triggering triggers. And what that comes from is just this amygdala that feels that there's a sense of danger. Whether it's real or perceived, the amygdala senses that. Your body produces hormones automatically. You don't have control over those. That creates that fight or flight. And you're either going to come out swinging and angry and mad, or you're going to distance. And those are the things nobody tells us about. They tell us, hey, they're going to act this way and do this and do that. And they may get depressed and they may have anxiety and they may have nightmares, but they don't tell you how to live with them. Nobody tells us how to live with them. You can live with them, and those behaviors that you're seeing right now can change. Time, baby steps, lots. The way we communicate, another key role in this. When you start to talk to your veteran and use words like, you did this, you are assigning blame. Now their back is to the wall. Fight or flight comes out. They get defensive or they get deflective. And where are you at? You're in the same spiral life you lived in now. So the verbiage is everything. The way you approach conversations is everything. You cannot have a conversation with someone who is triggered. If you are triggered, if they are triggered, do not expect an effective conversation. It will never happen. You need to wait just till the triggering goes away. I have this adage and this saying and the stuff behind me. It's quite simply this. Are they bleeding? Bleeding, and I mean profusely. Nope. Are they breathing? Yep. Is their heart beating? Yep. Then it's not an emergency. It can wait. It can wait. Whether it's a few hours or the next day, it can wait. You have to know that that's there. You also have to understand that self-care is vital. And a lot of us look at self-care as being selfish or self-centered, and that's wrong. Self-care is vital. You have to be able to protect yourself, love yourself first, because you've got to assign worth and value to yourself, or you can't create these boundaries that everybody talks about. You need to understand that you've got to take self-care and that you need to make sure you're okay. And I use this as the airplane adage. When you're flying and the stewardess is standing in the front of the plane and she's doing the pre-flight stuff and she goes, and in the event of cabin depressurization, a mask is going to fall out. Put it over your own nose and mouth first before assisting somebody else. You got to make sure you're okay first. When you learn to do that, you're going to have a much better relationship. First of all, with yourself. Second of all, with your veteran. You know, we say we want respect. Do you respect yourself? Well, if you don't respect yourself, then you're not going to get respect back from your veteran. And you're not going to be able to establish these boundaries that everybody talks about. Because if you don't have self-respect, you don't know what you're really protecting, and it becomes a set of rules. And nobody wants to live by a set of rules. Nobody wants to be dictated how they're going to live. Self-care, self-worth, self-value. You must learn those things. It's not self-centered. Sometimes that just means if you're being spoken to because somebody is in a rage state and you just don't want to be talked to that way anymore, to literally say, I need 5 minutes and we can resume this conversation. I'm going to go step outside. I'm going to go step in another room. I'm going to do whatever. And you have to do it. And sometimes you got to shut the door. And the first time I did it, there was a lot of beating on the door. But after I did it once or twice, the beating on the door stopped. After I said 5 minutes and I had to be out in 4 minutes and 59 seconds, now I just say I need some space. I need to get out of my own head. I need to work through things, and he allows me as much time as I need, just like I do it back to him. That's respect. And what it has taught us is the one boundary is not to cross into each other's space when we need our own time. I didn't have to go in and make that as a rule. The boundary happened automatically. So you're going to learn about boundaries going forward and how to set good boundaries. Boundaries are essential. Boundaries are amazing little critters. But whatever you set as a boundary for one person, they have to be the same across the board. And that again comes from self-respect, self-care, and self-worth. If you are so worthy that you don't want your veteran talking to you in a certain way, why are you going to let anybody else do it? If you do that, you've created a set of rules. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. I promise you, what is passed out in some little pamphlet from some doctor's office, from some VA, from somewhere, is not giving you all the knowledge you need. Do the research. Look at the truth. Look at other options. Don't just take things at face value. Don't take things at face value. You will find lots of links and resources that are either on our website or will be added to our website on a regular basis that will allow you the opportunity to do the homework yourself. Find out what's really going on, all the way down to prescription medication. When you're a veteran or even yourself, do what you need to do and learn a thing called informed consent. Know all the facts. Look at the side effects. And I don't just mean go look at what they print out and hand you with your bottle. Go to the FDA's website, look up the drug, and look at physicians' precautions. Huge difference. Those are all key things that you need to understand. We also need to understand that not everything is PTSD. There's PTSD. There are traumatic brain injuries. There's melfluin toxicity. There's stuff that happened through the burn pits. All of that, anthrax vaccine, all of that plays a role. And if we're treating the wrong thing, because a lot of them have the same signs and symptoms, we're not going to get effective treatment. So again, that research and that information is there for you to look at and start gaining knowledge, because knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, and you need that kind of power. You also need good support. Support is everything in this relationship. And I don't just mean support from your veteran, I mean support from people who get it. We can't always run to our family and say, well, let me tell you what he did today, or what she did today. We can't run to our friends and say, guess what happened in our house today? Now, people will look at you like you are crazy. They will be afraid that your veteran will cut you up and eat you for dinner. I've had people say that to me. Find support that is with a group of people who are similar to you and may have similar journeys. You'll find we don't judge. We've been there. We have some of the same struggles. We do some of the same things. We feel some of the same way. So find good support, online support, we offer it here. Local support, if you can find good local support, find it. But plug into something that's going to support you throughout this journey. Plug into somebody who understands what you're feeling throughout this journey. One of the hardest things I had to understand was this. Young men and women enlist, sign up, choose to be in our military. They know the risk and the inherent dangers. They know that somebody could possibly be shooting at them. They know that they could die. They know there are risks. They know they're going to deploy. They know they're going to be uncomfortable. The military's gotten a lot better about helping the families kind of work through this. But when they get out, there's nothing. There's nothing out there. As the spouses, we're kind of dropped, and loved ones, we're kind of dropped on the side. There's nothing there. We're missing that key. We have horrible statistics when it comes to our veterans who gave everything. And we have horrible statistics about what happens to our veteran population. The hundreds of thousands that are homeless on the street. The 1.4 million who are within danger of being homeless in the next 30 days. The 65% of veteran marriages that fail, which means that 65% of veteran families are torn apart. The over 22 veterans a day on average who are committing suicide. The common denominator in all of those is lack of support. You're not taught to be the support structure for your veteran. Nobody is helping support you. This is a relationship and a journey and a partnership, whether you're the spouse, the loved one, the girlfriend, the parent. It doesn't matter. The child. You need to understand, and you can develop a healthy, happy, loving relationship. And in healthy relationships, there's conflict. We just learn better conflict resolution. In healthy relationships, there are challenges. We just learn how to overcome them differently. When you do all that, you will find you have a happy relationship. And you have a loving relationship with yourself, with your veteran, with your family. It makes all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. This is how you get started. You get started by plugging in. You get started by being committed. You get started by having an open mind and a willingness to look at yourself in the mirror. You get started by understanding there are baby steps involved, and that what we teach and do works. We are very successful at it. What we do and what we teach works. And you need to understand that from this moment on, if you're watching this, from this moment on, you're not alone. You have support. You have that support now. PTSD doesn't have to control your life. You can live happily with it in your life. You just have to navigate it a little differently. There'll be plenty more where this came from. This is just the starting point. Where do I get started? We have literally hundreds of videos on YouTube. We have probably 500 on our Facebook page. There will be more coming here and other places with which you can get them. The information is there. Plug in. If you want better, plug in. We are your support, and we will continue to be. Just wanted to share this with you. I'm living proof it can be done. My veteran is living proof it can be done, and we make changes every day for the better in our life. I'm Stacy, and I hope every one of you has a blessed day. Plug in, get committed, support your veteran, support yourself. It's okay to love your veteran, and it is definitely okay to love yourself. Y'all have a blessed day and enjoy.